The United States and China are increasingly closing themselves off from one another. Challenges to student visas, cultural exchange, and journalists are disrupting the ways that our countries learn about each other. While disagreements over trade and security have simmered for decades, the two countries increasingly see each other as a threat. At the same time, people from both countries are still finding creative ways to interact and learn from each other. How did we get here, and where are we going next? We talked to two experts to understand why the US and Chinese governments are shifting their stance on exchange with each other.
I think the US government views different things differently. It pays a lot of attention to things that the government thinks has security implications or things that are more led by the state. For example, on the security front, TikTok could be a kind of cultural tech product, and it has received a lot of scrutiny because politicians, the government, and the public think it controls a lot of data. So we've seen a lot of questioning over how it's handled users' data. But there are also many other cultural products that they're not being questioned in any way. For example, a lot of Chinese games are very popular here, like Genshin Impact. And then very few people are asking, is it dangerous to American national security? We've seen, for example, Chinese influencers getting really popular on YouTube. Chinese web novel platforms getting really popular in America. In New York, there are screenings of Chinese films all the time. And then a lot of them, they actually wouldn't pass censorship in China. And then they were the directors will come here and then show their films here. They attract a lot of audiences. These things are more seen as just purely business entertainment things. So I think there are still Chinese cultural products that are surviving, thriving here. I think there's a risk of everything coming from China being politicized in America just because this rise in US-China tensions. But at the same time, there's still a big cultural space for Chinese products here. At the same time, I think a lot of things people would be increasingly questioning, is this propaganda, or is this part of China's soft power offensive?
So to understand how the Chinese government view American cultural products, we need to know how the Chinese government understand culture and cultural products in general. For the Chinese government, the cultural industry is an instrument to influence people's values and worldviews. Therefore, American cultural products are viewed as the instrument of the American government to persuade people of other countries to see the world as American people do. For example, when international audiences watch Captain America Save the World, it reinforces the image of America as the world police, as the savior. And this status gave America a huge geopolitical edge over its competitors like China in the eyes of the Chinese government. So the Chinese government does believe in soft power. It also believes that America has huge soft power in the international community. And American cultural products, especially Hollywood movies, constitute one pillar of that soft power. Although most media attention is on the political side of the cultural exchange, there are actually non-political, grassroots, and spontaneous exchange happening all the time. One example would be earlier this year when the TikTok ban was about to take effect, many TikTok users in America flocked to another Chinese app, Rednote. They call themselves TikTok refugees. And to accommodate these TikTok refugees and help them communicate with Chinese users, Rednote added English translation capacity within days. A trending hashtag on Rednote at that time was #cathexis, which means that to make friends with Chinese users on Rednote, you need to post pictures or videos of your cats. It is a playful way for the two groups of people speaking different languages to break the ice and find some common ground, which happen to be the cats, and I'm flattered as a cat parent. Another example is a Chinese influencer and a video blogger Li Ziqi. Her video showcased traditional Chinese rural life, including cooking, handicrafts, and farming, all done by this young Chinese woman herself. She has over 26 million subscribers on YouTube, and her top video got watched over 130 million times on YouTube alone. And know that YouTube is blocked in China, so there are mainly overseas audiences. So this sort of culture exchange just happens, not because the Chinese government makes it happen, it's spontaneous. However, the issue with the Chinese government is that it often tries to take over these moments when people are simply and genuinely connecting. They grow a curiosity about each other's culture and ways of life. And when these moments get taken over by the government or wrapped in a nationalist narrative, it can undermine the genuine curiosity and the intention to get connected.
In 2024, 81% of Americans held an unfavorable view of China, and in 2021, 75% of people surveyed in China held an unfavorable view of the US. Has this distaste always been the case? What did interactions between the US and China look like before?
When I first became a journalist, I felt there are a lot of stories showing like people being really curious about China. And then that's a period maybe 10 years ago when China's economy was like growing really fast, especially the tech industry. There's a lot of very like novel products coming out of China. I've written stories about, for example, the live streaming industry, shared bikes, mobile payments, a lot of innovative things happening in China. And I've seen like a very strong interest from the Western audience viewing China as this like kind of innovation hub. That's, wow, these things are so cool. But as these Chinese companies, industry becoming more powerful, some of them started to like launching products in the West. And at the same time, the relationship between the Chinese government and Western governments also became more tense. So I feel during these years, this curiosity is shifting towards skepticism. The same products, when they are becoming available in the West, people are starting to questioning, oh, is this a threat to us, to the lifestyle, to the security here? Historically, the US government and the American public actually welcomed Chinese people in America in a way that they feel like these people come here to learn about American culture, to learn about American system, and then they will become more friendly towards America, and then some of them may bring the same values back to China and then to promote this kind of like US-China relationship. But I feel increasingly people don't see Chinese people in the same way. A lot of Chinese, for example, the academics, some of them are seen as like, are they like spying on American technology? Are they a threat to the intellectual property rights here? Are they bringing kind of the knowledge here back home? And then even recently, we've seen this like crackdown against foreign students as a whole, like some of them lost their visas. So I think people still want to come here for the opportunities, both in terms of education and careers, but people definitely feel less welcomed in America.
The current narratives about America in China, unfortunately, is dominated by the political and the geopolitical tensions between these two countries. We have the TikTok ban and the trade war. The constant hostility between the two governments have dominated the media narratives. It attracts a lot of public attention in China as well. If you randomly stop a Chinese on street and ask them to tell you one thing about the US, they're most likely to tell you what Trump recently said or did, or their thoughts about the trade war. Also, Chinese people are less attracted to American cultural products today. China's own movie industry made some progress in recent years. In this Lunar New Year, the Chinese animated movie Ne Zha 2 grossed over $2 billion worldwide, and its success was seen as a significant milestone for Chinese animation. And this unfortunate result is that the cultural connection between the Chinese people and the American culture, the movies, the cultural exchange, has been undermined by both sides. All the attention and the narratives focus on geopolitical conflicts. And in this context, narratives about American people lose the nuances and care for real people. Just as most news narratives about China in the US today focus on Chinese tech industry, the trade war between the two, and less about ordinary Chinese. Real people and their struggle, their life, disappear from media narratives on both sides. Of course, government propaganda and official narratives contributed to it. But it is also because the connection and the exchange between civil society on both sides have been undermined in recent years, and it leaves space and the megaphone to the government's narratives.
Definitely, both governments are valuing people-to-people exchange less in recent years, just because how tense this relationship has gotten. And I think on the Chinese side, there's this rising nationalism and then this rising sense of cultural and political confidence. 20 years ago, the broader young population in China call America as a beacon. They think American culture, American technologies, and then even the political system is like more superior. But I think this generation of young people in China, they feel more confident with their own cultural and political system. And then on the government level, Chinese government is also promoting this kind of like confidence that maybe we don't need to learn from the West. In recent years, there's like a sharp drop in the number of, for example, American students in China. There's a drop in the number of American students that are learning Chinese. COVID is part of the reason. After COVID, there was just like less traveling between the two sides. But I think, yes, the government's overall kind of like hostile tone towards China definitely puts a lot of people off. And then the trade between the two countries is also getting more difficult. Maybe like people will feel like, oh, what's the point of learning more about China because there's not much opportunity for me there. Versus maybe 10, 20 years ago, a lot of American companies are expanding their presence in China. And then young American here, they feel there's like a big opportunity in terms of education and career if they learn more about China. So I think this like broader political climate definitely is discouraging people-to-people exchange. It doesn't mean that people-to-people exchange is dying. I think that's still very necessary, and then we still see that happening. But I think people in both countries, when they are not communicating and then they only see the kind of hostile stories on media about the trade war, about politicians fighting against each other verbally, they kind of like forgot that people on the other side just like humans like us. And then sometimes we see, for example, a while ago when TikTok was going to get banned, there's like a surprising influx of like American users on this Chinese social media app, Red Note. I've been like following the conversations that are happening there, and then I've seen a lot of cute comments saying like, oh, like I didn't know that Chinese people also make the same jokes as us. Maybe we share the same memes. And then I think sometimes like people forgot that there are humans on the other side, and then we are not that different from each other, despite this very difficult US-China relationship.